federal court to release Brown on bail before the black activist leaves his cell in New York next month. That's News to 4 from UPI and the AP.
Central European Time, 10 o'clock. A Saudi Arabian jetliner lands safely in Istanbul after catching fire.
AFN News from the wires of the AP and UPI.
Good morning, David Mynatt reporting. A Saudi Arabian Airlines jetliner with 346 passengers aboard caught fire over the Istanbul metropolitan area early today, but the pilot landed the plane safely at Istanbul's airport. Airport officials say 2 passengers sustained minor injuries and the fire was put out soon after landing. The plane originally was destined for Ankara but was diverted to Istanbul because of heavy fog over Ankara's airport. Minutes before reaching Istanbul, the plane caught fire in one wing. Officials say all passengers were Turkish pilgrims returning from Mecca. Cause of the fire not yet reported. The aircraft incident occurred less than 1 day after a Middle East Airlines jetliner crashed into a remote stretch of the Saudi desert, killing all 82 persons aboard. Officials are investigating the cause of that disaster. The Christian Science Monitor reports in its latest editions that 300 CIA-sponsored Americans are ready to fight in the Angolan Civil War. The paper says the waiting Americans are ready to join another 300 CIA-sponsored Americans already fighting in the African nation as soon as the CIA can obtain money to fund them. Both the CIA and the White House term the report total nonsense. Residents of Argentina have closed out 1975 on a somber note, remembering that the past year was marked by political uncertainty and urban terrorism. A year-end review of the Argentine situation is provided by CBS correspondent Bob Strassel in Buenos Aires.
For the people of Buenos Aires, 1975 was the worst year in terms of violence and economics in living memory. More than 1,000 people died in political violence. As the bodies of young guerrillas who took part in a pre-Christmas raid were slowly being identified, many parents across the nation tragically learned for the first time that their sons and daughters were revolutionaries. Economically, even with wage increases of 200%, a 300% rate of inflation lowered the standard of living for all but the very rich. 1975 started with pledges from every political sector to support President Isabel Perón. The year ended with an unsuccessful attempted coup and charges from her own political party that the president was incompetent. Last year came as a real shock to Argentines who as a nation have become used to comfort and enjoyment in their country, one of the world's richest on a per capita basis. 1976 is here now and elections will be held at the end of the year. All of the nation's major politicians publicly state that the best they hope for is some political stability that will allow Argentina's downhill trend to be reversed. Bob Strassel for CBS News in Buenos Aires.
President Ford has vetoed 43 bills in his presidency. The latest veto, New Year's Day, was a measure that would have given membership in the National Security Council to the Secretary of the Treasury. Mr. Ford said there is already an adequate way to get advice to the Council from the Treasury. An Associated Press survey shows breakfast costs more now than a month ago. Prices for milk, butter, eggs, and coffee are up in most of the 13 cities in the survey. The overall bill for 15 commonly purchased supermarket items rose an average of 3 7/10% in December. The Agriculture Department reports that the trend to larger and fewer farms has slowed down. 10 years ago, farms were declining at the rate of about 100,000 a year. During 1975, the number of farms dropped by 22,000. 10 years ago, the average farm had 340 acres, but that figure went to 389 acres last year. Snowstorms have hampered travel through much of the Rockies and the north central and midwestern U.S. states. Snow or storms are expected in the southern mountains in New Mexico, parts of South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. Travel advisories are in effect for much of the surrounding area and for the mountains of Southern California, where winds are said to be quite high. That's the news from the wires of UPI and the AP. David Mynatt, AFN News.